There were times I was looking at myself in the mirror going, dude, why are you putting on khakis?
Where Gunny Hawley, who was blown up and killed, who had 2 children, I lived in a reality for about, I think, 15 years that it should have been me.
Your source of strength has never been you. It has always been from somewhere else. It's just my belief that mine is from God, and I choose to rely on God, and I'm far from perfect. I screw up all the time, but my life is at peace. I have found a point past the storm where I am at peace.
When things got really bad, which they will, we all are going to have times in our life where we just can't handle some things. To know that reaching out for help is an option. It's the same as going to the doctor when you can't get over the common cold and it's turned into something crazy.
Yep.
Or sinus infection. You got to go to a doctor and get medicine. It's the same with your mental health.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Bunkhouse. Today with me, I have Sarah Moore. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
No, absolutely. Thank you for being here. If you could tell everybody a little bit about yourself, what you did in the military and what made you want to join.
Yeah. So, gosh, it's quite a bit of a story because I served for over 21 years, but the foundation of my story was, I was in college when 9/11 happened, and I was in college at Rutgers University in New Jersey, so pretty close to New York City, and was in class when the towers were hit, and it kind of was just one of those things that shook me to the core, and I realized I really need to do something. So I actually left college and enlisted. Yes. So I had an enlistment period there. I joined as an 88 mic truck driver of all things, and served my time, got called up when the war started, was a reservist, went back to college after all of that and decided that I loved the Army so much that I wanted to stay and make a career out of it. So finished my degree at Rutgers, Middle Eastern Studies, Arabic, and then, of course, that in the Army's eyes directed me into being a Black Hawk pilot. So
Nice.
However that works, but I'm happy it did. So yeah, I spent my career in aviation, UH-60 pilot for most of it. I spent the last 5 years of my career working with UAVs, and it was a roller coaster the entire time. But yeah, the 9/11 is what got me into it, and I felt strongly enough about it to do a full career about it.
Yeah, I think our generation of veteran, that was kind of the same sentiment. I think with a lot of us is we probably all thought about doing it at some point, but then when 9/11 happened, it kind of really checked the box for us. Like, no, this is what we need to do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it really, all of us that are in that OEF group, we all had that drive to serve of that one big event. And yeah, it was a pretty incredible time to join and feel the aftermath of it too.
Yeah. So question real quick. So your degree, you said your major was in Arabic and Middle Eastern language, right? Was that your major before as well, or did it change because of?
That changed because of. So yeah, like really great question, and that's cool that you picked up on that. No, I was always into exercise science. I had this little thing of well, I wanted to be an engineer, and then it turns out that I definitely don't have a math brain. And so not until I enlisted in the Army did I figure out that I actually have a brain that can pick up languages. And it was during one of those, so you do the ASVAB, whatever. So we're in basic, and I got pulled out, and they're like, hey, you need to take a language exam because you scored something on an ASVAB that they just caught. And I was like, what is happening? And so I took their little well, I don't remember what it's called at this point, D-Lab or something like that, but their little fake language,
Yeah.
in tests, and they're like, "Yeah, you scored really well." So when I got out of basic and I was getting ready to go back to college, I was like, "Yeah, I'm kinda interested in what's going on in the Middle East." I never, as a kid growing up in North Idaho for the most part, like, never
Yeah.
really learned much about the Middle East. So I was really interested to be like, why did 9/11 happen? And so that kind of put me into that path of learning about the Middle East. And then of course, yeah, language had to come with it. So
No,
yeah.
that's also yeah. I think it's funny how like how certain events can change our entire course and like our perspective and really and even like transition or shapes what we get engaged in or what we start kind of aligning our passions with a little more too. Like in your case with the language and learning more about the Middle East. Um so yeah, I mean what was it what was campus life like being at Rutgers that close to New York City prior to 9/11 and then after it happened? Like what was that like?
So oh man, campus life it's a huge city. It's a huge
Yeah.
city. And so being there and being, I was fully part of the military by that point. So even though I was in the National Guard, kind of like college life and having the weekend drills and then always having that kind of like looming deployment over your head because we
Yeah.
were in the midst of OIF and OEF. And so I I kind of skipped out on the college experience. Like I really took college as kind of a job. Like I
Yeah.
would set like really strict parameters for myself on studying and then I was very motivated to do, the best that I could in ROTC and my National Guard job and so it's kind of like you missed out on that point of life and
Yeah.
fast forward, 20 years now in my 40s, now I'm like going back to like enjoy all the things that I miss. I'm not like the partying and stuff like that, but I'm like, man,
Yeah.
I'm free to like do things that I want now because for
Yeah.
the last, 20 years that piece was so dedicated to the military and I know a lot of us do that. So it's yeah, it's an interesting question looking back on it because it was a pretty stressful environment. You weren't just a
Yeah.
college kid. You were basically doing well in college because you needed to because you have you're going to commission as an officer during a time of war
Yeah.
and that's a pretty heavy thing to have on your shoulders in your early 20s.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine. I mean, I was like when 9/11 happened, I was a sophomore, I believe. No, I was a junior in high school. Yeah, I was a junior in high school when 9/11 happened. And I was sitting in junior English class. I remember exactly. We were sitting there, and then all of a sudden, the principal came over to intercom and told everybody to stop what they were doing and turn the TVs on and stuff. And yeah, I mean, I'd always wanted to join the military, and I always wanted to be a Marine if I was to join the military. And after that happening, like it was a no brainer for me. Like that's what I was going to do. So I
Yeah.
mean, but yeah, I mean, it's really crazy if you think about how certain like that event it changed like the course of so many people and drove the patriotism to join and serve your country, knowing what was on the other side of that. You know?
Yes. And looking back on that, and I always look at the course of the last 20 years in my life and the people that I've met through the military and what's
Yeah,
happened. And I'm like, the actions of 19 people that day
yeah,
changed the course of so many more people's lives than they probably even intended or thought that they were going to do.
right,
And it's really wild to think, if 19 people had that action of evil,
yeah,
all of us, like, okay, going like way philosophical now, but like, what if 19 of us do something really, really good in the world? Like, what's the chain reaction
yeah,
that can come from that? And so, yeah, it's just wild to think about how all of us have this connection now because of that day and because of those people. It's yeah, it's kind of wild.
yeah. So being a Black Hawk pilot, what was the craziest thing or the coolest thing that you got to do or experience?
Oh wow, this is a great question because I'm not going to like cheap out on your answer, but every single time I got in the aircraft, that was my happy place. I got to be honest.
Yeah.
And so I know we're going to talk about deeper with mental health, but when I look at my time flying, that to me was my happy place. That was my meditation. That was my pure focus, because you
Yeah.
had to be so dialed into what's going on in that aircraft that nothing else in the world mattered besides you, your crew, and the mission.
Yep.
And that was my first taste at being truly passionate about something so much where nothing else mattered.
Yeah.
And so yeah, some of the cool missions were the ones that, you know, we actually got to like, I don't know. I mean, you always want to be like helpful for people, but you know, the Iraq missions, that's you know, whatever you have in the back of your aircraft that you can't talk about
Yeah.
is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like giving people their first experience of, you know, being in a helicopter, or sometimes, you know, some of our soldiers, it was their first time in flight.
Yeah.
And that's the joy of, you know, showing them how amazing this is. I mean, we did firefighting missions in Kosovo with the Bambi buckets. That was really incredible to, you know, to be part of a real world solution. We did actual
Yeah.
air assaults. We helped clear roadblocks. Like all of our missions were just so, that's why I love the air assault mission too, because it's so unique. It's so different. It's not just one
Yeah.
thing. And you get this opportunity to meet so many people and do all these different things. But yeah, the special piece for me was that it taught me that's your happy place, and I protected that with my life, as we'll probably get into the story a little bit later. But
Yeah.
that was they again, like, if I look back on my life, I'm going to look at like those years flying as probably one of the most memorable and most special, even though they were incredibly stressful.
No, yeah, I mean, I could definitely understand that. Like you're there, like you're responsible for not just the aircraft, but the people within the aircraft and the people you're supporting on your mission, right? Like, yeah, I could definitely see how you would get completely honed in and like super focused in a sense, right? To make sure that everything was going the way it needs to go. Um,
Yeah, 100%. And then, you know, as an air assault commander and then an air mission commander, it's not just my aircraft now, it's,
yeah,
you know, the entire flight or the entire platoon or the entire company, you know, depending on level of responsibility. And so yeah, it really isn't just you, it's you and your
yeah,
entire fleet of aircraft and personnel, and yeah, people that you're supporting on the ground, whether it be fellow troops, civilians, you know, whatever's happening in the area of operations that you happen to find yourself in. And it's it's a huge weight of responsibility, but for me, like, I thrived off that, and I absolutely loved it.
Oh, that's awesome. I think a lot of is, especially the longer you stay in, I think you find a lot more passion in those types of things than earlier on in your career, because earlier on in your career, you're just doing what you're told. You're just kind of black and white. You do this. Okay. That's what I'm going to do. But as you say, in longer, you start expanding your roles, expanding your responsibilities and your purview, and you start taking in a holistic view of everything around you. And you're like, oh man, like I didn't realize how impactful this little thing I was doing 3 years ago actually is to the bigger picture, right?
Mhm.
And you really start getting a grain and a passion for it, and really wanting to perfect it even more, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a big, it's it's huge. I'm like, wow, I haven't thought about my flight days for a while now because I've been so into the mental health aspect of things. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's really fun to revisit and think about all that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So after being in aviation for that long and serving 21 years in the army, what was the transition like for you? Like right kind of at the close end of your time in service, and then let's say 8 to 12 months post that. What was that like?
Well, to talk about that, I have to go back to
Okay.
about 10 years prior. So I'm going to say like mid career level stuff.
Okay.
Um, and that really actually started my military transition. So
Okay.
I was in the middle of a routine dunker training. And for those that don't know, dunker is the simulated helicopter crash in water. So you're in the simulator, the thing crashes, the water comes up and you're breathing, you're like trying to get that one last sip of air.
Yeah.
It sinks, it flips, and then you have to escape in darkness, of course, because you're underwater. But then they'll throw in these other scenarios. The door is locked, the
Yep.
cabin filled up with, simulated smoke. Like just, all the different variables that go into this. So I had done this training multiple times before. It's not my favorite. I'm not a water person. You'll find that I'm someone that belongs very high in the air, and that's part of my love for mountains. But underwater, not my jam. And so I just have this natural fear of and discomfort being in water.
Yeah.
And so fine, flight school, passed it. Fine, there was another attempt that I passed it. But the time that I got back from my deployment overseas for OIF, I had to go through it again while I was in the captain's career course. And that point, my nervous system snapped during that exercise.
Oh, wow.
And I had a panic attack in the pool. I didn't even know I was having a panic attack. I didn't even know what a panic attack was. And basically I was pulled out of the pool in front of my peers, completely embarrassed, couldn't stop. Like I was physically shaking. I could not stop shaking. And I was like, like you just have that mental, like we're all mentally tough, but you have this willingness to like just control your body. And nothing I was doing was stopping this like full body shake.
Yeah.
So they pull me out of the pool. Of course, my training's done for the day. They evac me to the hospital. And yeah, it turned out that I had a panic attack. And I was like, what do you like? I can get through anything. Like, what is this? And so that was the beginning of honestly a life transition that I had to have while I was still serving my time in the military, but set the stage for what I wanted after. I'm going to tell you the part of this story as I know it, as what I know now as being a neuroscience specialist, is what set my nervous system up for that crash. And that was in 2009 that happened, was a whole slew of things that I did not deal with. And as military personnel, I'm going to list these things. And there's going to be like probably all of your listeners are going to be like, oh yeah. But so things that were happening, I just got back from deployment. I had no decompression time. The Army, said your downtime is going to this school. So, okay, fine. I'm in the US for 6 months before you can send me away again. Cool. So no time to decompress. I had nowhere to live. I wasn't living anywhere. When I got rid of all my stuff when I deployed, and essentially didn't have a plan or a place to go back to. I was in a very physically and emotionally abusive marriage at the time. And that stress of just daily life and dealing with that was enough to send your nervous system through the roof. I know I'm a high performer, and with a lot of us that are high performers, we don't say no. So every additional duty at work is given to me. I had no kids at that point. So that's also a really great opportunity for commanders to give you additional extra duties because you don't have to really go home at the end of the day because you don't have kids at home. And no boundaries. I had no boundaries. So I could not say no. The other thing is all of the personal things that made me, or, the stuff that makes you, I threw it out the window for the Army. So the passions, the music, I used to play guitar. I used to love to sing. I was a ballet dancer for most of my life. Like all of these things that weren't Army enough, in my opinion, went out the door. So when you look at it from a neuroscience standpoint, all of the stuff that was stacked against me that just had years and years and years building up, and then you add a stressful event like Dunker, where my nervous system hates it anyways. There is no amount of mental toughness that can overcome your nervous system actually breaking. And it's like too much stress on a bone. Like the bone breaks when there's too much stress. Your nervous system is exactly the same way. So your nervous system will snap. So going to that, so I'm pulled out of the pool. I'm mortified. I can't believe I have to go home and face my husband, who I know is going to make fun of me and call me ridiculous and say I'm not strong. Like just all the things.
Yeah.
And But my biggest concern was, oh my God, I've just lost my flying career. Because if it's an anxiety attack, then it's mentally
Yeah.
related. And now you guys are going to pull the only thing that I love in my
Yeah.
life. So this kind of started my transition of, one, I am forced to get mental health help. So yeah, I had to go see an army psychiatrist. I was grounded for about 6 weeks. I had to work through the things that I was working through. Um, but lesson learned is I got back in the cockpit. It
Yeah.
didn't ruin my career. And so that was my first thing of like, wow, okay, this, thank God this isn't career ending. Um, the other thing that it started to teach me was that I need to start taking care of myself.
Yeah.
I can't think that taking care of myself is drinking coffee and Red Bull all day and doing PT 2 times a day and forcing myself to go run 5 miles a day and do work, crash at home, and then do it all again. And
Yeah.
then not deal with anything that's going on in my personal life at home as well. So those were kind of like the start of the lessons learned. Um, and so that was my breaking point. A lot of us will have our breaking point when we get out of the military. But
Yeah.
if you look back and if you've served a long time in public service, first responder life, military life, something happens to us at about that 8 to 10 year mark. And that's about the time where your nervous system says we can't live like this anymore. So it may not
Yep.
be as extreme as what mine did, but usually there's something around that time, a divorce, a breakdown, a physical thing, like it happens.
Yeah, no, I actually experienced that's kind of what started my outward process as well. Um, it wasn't necessarily like a dunk or not, and I still can't pinpoint what started this chain reaction of events. But what I do know is that for the first 8 years of my career, all I did was work up, deploy, and that was it, right? I mean, there was a 3 year span, 2008, 2009, 2010, that I was deployed in a combat zone at some point of those years. So '08, I was in Iraq, and then '09 to '10, I was in, or '09 to 10, I was in Afghanistan. And then came back from those, and what we do, we work up and get ready for the next one, and 2011, all I did was go to the field. 2012, I deployed to Afghanistan again, and so around 2014, no, yeah, so 14, I ended up going to Okinawa and I started feeling a little bit of pain in my leg. Wasn't bad. It was only here and there, not very often. Went to medical. They did some X-rays, couldn't figure out what it was. So I was like, all right, whatever. But again, wasn't that bad. Wasn't that often. It was just every now and then. Didn't worry about it too much. And then in 2017, I submitted my application to become a warrant officer and got accepted. Went to our warrant officer basic course in 2018. Um, and right before that, I had hurt my lower back doing PT. So I was cautious about when I went to Wobick, and I was like, man, I have to pass this like initial PFT. Like I have to, if I want to continue on and graduate. I did, um, went through it, did pretty good. I had to go like to the, sports medicine a few times throughout the course. Um, but then when I left, I thought I was in pretty good, probably one of the best shapes I've been in a very long time because it was a lot of weighted marching, a lot of infantry tactics through the hills of Virginia, and a lot of land nav, like 15 miles worth of land nav sometimes. And it was a lot, but it was fun. I felt really good. Then went back to 29 Palms for like my advanced MOS school as a warrant officer and felt pretty good when I left there. And then got to Camp Lejeune, and within like 8 months of being at Camp Lejeune, it's like my body decided it was time, like my time was over. I was doing some pull-ups, getting ready, like training for a PFT. I got down off of it, and I noticed my right elbow was red and was swollen, and it was hot to the touch. It didn't hurt, but I noticed there was something wrong. And this was on a Friday, and I was like, you know what? Just like that on Monday, I'll go to medical on Monday. So I didn't worry about it. Went in, they started looking at it. Come to find out, I actually I ended up having to have a ulnar nerve decompression because I had cubital tunnel syndrome. which for everybody out there, it's the same thing as carpal tunnel in the wrist, but it's just in the elbow that your ulnar nerve that runs in the elbow. So that was kind of like the first instance of my body shutting down. And then all of a sudden, my lower back came back, but at like tenfold this time. And then the pain in my leg came back like 100-fold almost this time. And then I started having more muscular pains in other areas of my body, and nerve pain in other areas of my body. So now I have chronic nerve and muscular pain all the time, and they can't figure out why, and it's just like, it was just almost like one day, it's like my body said, nope, we are done. And it's time to go. And that's kind of what started my med board, and retired in 2022.
Yeah, it's I guarantee all of us have these
Yeah.
similar stories. And I mean, it needs to get to the point where, we shouldn't be surprised anymore
Yeah.
to hear about all this and hear the stories, especially after what we put our minds and bodies through
Yeah.
for that amount of time. And it just, the body decides.
It does.
You're-
Yeah.
we're like,
When your body and mind says it's time to quit, it's time to quit. There is no stopping it.
there
Like,
there isn't. And if you don't take care of it up to that point, like we think we're taking care of it,
Yeah.
but we're really not. Let's be
No.
real. The military and the lifestyle that we have, you're not taking care of your mind and body at all.
No.
And so you'll get to a point where, okay, cool.
Yep.
we're gonna
Yeah,
force you to take care of it now.
but because you hit it on the head too, like when you were talking about, like, I was like, we fuel ourselves with caffeine and nicotine, right? Like that's what we would do. And I mean, we had to stay awake, we had to perform and be high performers, so that's what you did,
Yeah.
and long term of that does not work very well.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It messes with your sleep. It messes with
Yep.
your nervous system. And then the problem comes too when you're so used to that.
Yep.
Your body will seek different ways to get that adrenaline spike again. So when
Yep.
we're out, even if you're pounding Red Bulls at a desk job, or having coffee all day, or if you're in
Yep.
coffee by noon, that's an indicator that your nervous system is telling you, like, yeah, no, it feels like we have to be amped up because that's how we live. It doesn't know how to be calm and just live.
Yep.
And so, whenever I see or meet somebody and they've got the Red Bull in their hand, I was like, okay, we got a little nervous system thing going on, but it's cool. We're all there.
So yeah. So so that was like the kind of the downward trajectory of the latter half of your career. So what does the rest of that look like?
So the rest of my career, so here's the thing, that because I told you before how much flying meant to me.
Yeah.
And that's all that I had, because I had kicked everything else out of my life and made decisions in my life that made flying was the most important thing.
Yeah.
And so my determination was to make sure that flying wasn't taken away from me. It
Right.
wasn't to live a quality life yet. It was just to sustain so that I didn't lose anything more in my life. So what I started doing is that, the military solution to my mental health, and I did not mention before, but I also had severe back problems that started when I was deployed in OIF. It would be my neck, such spinal compression throughout my neck and my back, but particularly my neck during that time that my left arm would go numb.
Ooh.
And so their answer was painkillers, prescription
Yeah.
painkillers, and muscle relaxers. And that was a thing that threatened my flying career. And
Yep.
so I was like, no, I will figure this out. And so that started me down the path of really looking more at the mind and body and to figure out what actually happened. So little tiny pieces, I started going to a chiropractor. So little self-care things started going, and I started taking, the sick time that I would need to actually go to these appointments and not push them off. So that started with chiropractic care. And all of this, by the way, I'm paying out of pocket because they're not supporting these types of health benefits at this point. So chiropractic care, then I learned massage therapy was really good. So I would do both of those. And then I was forced into going into talk therapy. So that's another thing that was there. Talk therapy didn't really work great for me. therapists at that time seemed to be all volunteers. And as you know, like the whole initial OIF, OEF crowd, it just, I don't want to talk to someone who has no relation of what I've just been through. So the talk therapy felt really corny for me. What else did I do? So then my big breaking point in a good way was I went to a yoga class, and it wasn't gym yoga, but like a real yoga studio.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm going to buy a package for a month, and I'm going to make, it was a forcing function to leave work.
Yeah.
A reasonable time to get to this 7 p.m. class to do an hour of yoga at least 3 times a week. And I think maybe towards the end of that month, the feeling in my arms started coming back. My back pain started being more manageable. And I was like, whoa, there's definitely something here. So that started me down the path of getting really into yoga, and learning the science behind it and trying to like really pick apart what it's doing to the mind and body. So that was like, I'm going to say the first 3 to 5 years after the Dunker incident happened. And I was just focusing on myself because this was self-preservation still of not having my flying career taken away. By the time I deployed to Kosovo, which was that was like 2011, 2012 timeframe, I had been into yoga so much that I decided to take it to Kosovo with me, and I started having my soldiers do it. And it worked. I mean, by the end of deployment, I had 30 people consistently from base coming to my yoga classes, which was fantastic. But but then when they started telling me, yeah, I'm sleeping better and my back's feeling better, it's like, oh my God, yeah, there is something here. This is pretty amazing. When I left Kosovo, I came back to the US and decided that I was going to go to grad school. So I went to Georgetown University. I studied international security at that point. So still focusing on Middle Eastern stuff, but I accidentally took a class. And it was called Decision Making in Stressful Environments. And I was like, wow, that's me. Like, I need this. And it turned out that it was a neuroscience class. And it was a class on how your brain needs to function to be able to make decisions in stressful environments.
Yeah.
And the whole thing broke down neuroscience, PTSD. What's the science behind stress? Why do we act certain ways? What is, and why are we holding on to this? How is the body reacting to it? What is the nervous system? What does it mean when we're stuck on a high? Like all of these things. And then most of our coursework, this is graduate level stuff, was like meditation.
Oh. Okay.
I was like, never would you have gotten me as a military veteran, or being in the military. Like yoga was woo-woo enough.
Yeah.
Me sit and meditate and like log my journals and all this for a semester of grad school. When I was my full-time job, I was an XO for the aviation division at National Guard Bureau. Like, no. so like going through that was another piece of healing for me, because I'm like, wow, now I know why this is happening. I know what trauma is. I know what it does to the brain. I know how the body reacts from it. And I have the power to no longer be a passenger to my own nervous system, or be that angry veteran, or have no control over how much caffeine I drink, or seeking alcohol as an answer to de-stress on the evenings and weekends. And so once I had those answers to it, I was like, that was the switch to when healing actually started happening for me. And so at that point, through the rest of my military career, which is probably, we're getting into like the 5-year mark of the last 5 years where I was working with UAVs. But that's when I started applying the things that I wish I had applied all along, setting the boundaries, setting work schedules, getting things that I love back in my life, taking the weekend ballet class, spending more time with friends, working on, relationships that were outside of the military. And it, so that was really when things started healing for me. And then also knowing that when things got really bad, which they will, we all are going to have times in our life where we just can't handle some things, to know that reaching out for help is an option.
Yeah.
And it's the same as going to the doctor when you can't get over the common cold and it's turned into something crazy
Yep.
or sinus infection. You got to go to a doctor and get medicine. It's the same with your mental health. You get to a point where, hey, this is way too much for me to handle.
Yep.
I need a few weeks of therapy to get through this. And so by taking away that stigma of thinking that, I'm weak and I can't handle something on my own, that accelerated me through a lot of other hard times that I had to go through. So yeah, that was I feel like when I transitioned out of the military, it took me a decade to figure it out, but having those pieces in place made my transition much smoother
Yeah.
than the traditional what the military does for you is, your whatever assistance programs that you have to go that don't really actually they'll
Or
help you
assist you in
get a
anything.
job.
Yeah.
They'll help you get a job, but they're not going to help you live life. And we need to
Yeah.
learn how to live life again because we've been
Yes.
taught how to just push through and caffeinate and drink ourselves through the last 20 years just to survive, something that we're really passionate about.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree, and that's probably one of the most common themes when talking to veterans is how it is across all services too. It's not even just one service is worse than the other. This is across all services of veterans that I've talked to is how the transition programs don't actually set you up for success to transition back into society, right? They tell you what the VA is, but they don't actually guide you or give you any kind of like hot takes on how to do your claims or where to go or what you have to make sure is done before you do your claims. They don't do any of that stuff. They just give you some phone numbers and some emails and a website. Um, they have you write a resume, but the way they teach you how to write a resume only would get you a job for a GS position or a government contracting position, right? Not an actual corporate America or something you might actually be passionate about. It's just to feed you right back into the pipeline to feed the
The
government again, right?
self-employed.
Like
Yeah.
it's really, that's exactly what it is, right? It's just to feed you back into the pipeline, really. That's all it is. Um, so yeah, it's like, I mean, I guess at least they're trying to do something, I guess, but like, I really wish that, like you were saying, like, I wish they would teach us how to actually live life and how to take care of ourselves, right? Like, yeah, like we kind of take care of ourselves in the military. We PT like we're supposed to. We stay in like a physical standard, but still at the end of the day, like the ones that are teaching us how to PT aren't physical trainers, right? They're not actual like certified trainers. They just know what they've been taught by their leadership, who was taught by their leadership, who was taught by their leadership, right? And
Right.
so does it work? Yes, but not long term. It's not long term sustainable for your body, the way that we try to PT sometimes. But yeah, I mean, they 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 don't teach us how to be an adult, really. They don't, and I think that's something like, and now looking back too, that I know that's something I took for granted. Like when I finally came into the Marine Corps, I came in when I was 21, but still, like you're not really an adult in my opinion at 21. I definitely wasn't. Like, all I did was rodeo and drank was mostly what I did before I came in the Marine Corps. So I definitely was not close to being an adult at that point when I came in. But again, like they don't teach you how to be an adult. Like I always tell everybody, the military is the easiest job to have, right? Like, is it physically and mentally demanding? Absolutely. There's a lot of jobs out there that are, but you get it told exactly what to do. You get it told exactly how to do it, what to wear, how to talk, what to eat, how to eat, when to sleep. Like you get literally told everything and it's all in
Yep.
black and white, right? Like nowhere else, no other profession is it like that, you know? So yeah, I don't know. They don't teach you how to be an adult in society very well.
Right. And handling emotions.
Yeah. Oh,
And
they definitely don't do that well at
that,
all.
I mean, that lesson right there. But it's, I think the approach is really interesting. And the approach that I've made to it, and I had to learn this because that's how I had to learn it, is a very systematic approach.
Yeah.
So, like, I had to learn systems in the Black Hawk.
Yeah.
And so, if I can see something, take it apart, understand why it works, I understand that so much better. And also, I love the aspect, like, obviously, I'm a pilot. I'm not fixing anything on the Black Hawk, but so that you can explain it to your crew chiefs. Like,
Yes.
I pressed this button and broke it.
Yeah.
Like, I need to be able to explain more of behind so that they can actually fix it and make it better, right?
Yeah.
So when I started looking at the brain that way and the nervous system that way, and I'm going to take out the body part, because we all know, like, we have a level enough of fitness that we know how to physically work our body.
Yep.
But looking at the brain and looking at it as a system was what differentiated the piece of, when I was struggling, the piece of beating myself up saying I'm not mentally tough enough,
Yeah.
versus looking at it saying this is a system overload,
Yeah.
and this is why your brain is operating this way, and this is why you're snapping at people, and this is why you're reaching for alcohol to think it's going to calm you down, and this is why, I don't know, list any other of the adrenaline seeking behaviors that we all have. You're driving your
Yeah.
motorcycle at 140 miles an hour, like all the things that we do that we're like, oh, they're just soldiers, just military. But
Yeah.
when you look at it as a system, these adrenaline seeking behaviors all come from dysregulated nervous systems, which comes from knowing what the heck is going on in your brain and body.
Yeah. It's like so those symptoms are just like an arrow light on your flight panel.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Exactly. And I swear, if the military could just teach us, we need to learn this going into the military, because
Yeah.
the pace and what they teach us is unsustainable
oh
for
yeah.
the duration of your career, or even an enlistment. That's just, 4 years of living like that is enough to screw you up for your entire life.
Yes.
So you need to learn this stuff going in. You need to have like a mid-career check-in of, hey, remember what you were taught, because now you're living it. And
Yep.
then the out processing needs to stop being this, the transition the personnel out so that they can get another job and figure it out, versus, hey, let's transition you back to real life.
Yeah.
And that piece, I mean, it's severely missing, and it's not going to get funded in this current environment either. So.
No, and you're right, because like in my opinion, to provide back a better citizen to society is to one you should be sending them out better than when they came into the military, which in a lot of senses we are better coming out of the military, but there's a lot of ways that we're worse than we were before we joined the military, right? And those are the pieces that I think they really should start focusing on in the future, is working through those prior to that person getting out, right?
Mhm.
Going through, like you said, teaching them how to healthy response to trauma, right? Building those healthy habits. Because again, they don't teach that type of stuff. And then if you do ask for the professional help, a lot of times I would say you were very fortunate in your case, but that doesn't happen in a lot of our cases. Like you go and you say, hey, I've been drinking way too much. I need some help. That's not a good thing to admit,
Right.
you'll get help, but then guess what? There's going to be some other things happen once you get back from that help, right? Like
Yeah.
that's a lot of times that's what happens. And the same thing, like, hey, I got all this stuff. I'm having nightmares, all this other stuff. I need to talk to somebody. Okay. They may send you to somebody, but let's say you're supposed to deploy in a month. Well, that sucks. You better suck it up and figure it out, right? Like that was a mentality a lot of times too, especially early on in our careers.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think that should be part of the transition too, is teaching us how to do those things, because nobody's going to understand unless we stay in a veteran community once we get out. A lot of us don't. A lot of us don't have fellow veterans around us once we get out.
Right. A lot of us are isolated, and
Yeah.
you can't have those real conversations, and you can't, even just the check-in of, hey, how's it going? Well, it's also really hard to admit when you're like, yeah, hey, I'm like drinking a 6-pack plus every night. Like, it's
Yeah.
just really, really tough unless you're like physically with those people and seeing these things.
Yeah.
But it's, yeah, and I continue to go back to, if we understood the science of it and understand, trauma is three things. It's something that's unpredictable, uncontrollable, and unsafe.
Yeah.
Every single one of us in the military has been in a situation that is unpredictable,
Yep.
unsafe, and uncontrollable. And
Yep.
that's the concoction that makes trauma. So when you're like, oh, I'm not traumatized, like, you're
Yeah.
100% you've been through
You
trauma.
are. Yep.
Yeah. So let's accept it and
Yep.
start to apply the fix for it so that we can live a life that isn't full of these triggers and the avoidance that we do to try to, I don't, if I won't go to concerts, I won't go to crowds, or I hate the grocery store, I hate all this stuff. Well, there's a way to work through this. You
Yeah.
don't have to live your life like that and be triggered just by the thought of going to the grocery store, or go out to a concert with your friends, man. Like, I lived that way for years. I
Yeah.
wouldn't go to a concert. And then finally, after I was working through, the mental health programs and they're really working on it with my nervous system, I was like, I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna go to a concert. and I had a great time. So these things that, we think that aren't accessible to us anymore, they're there. There's no magic pill for it. But I'm telling you, the work to get there and to live a life that you're happy with, and
Yeah.
not flying off the wall with every little, inconvenience that comes your way, is really, really, I I don't even I can't even think of a word that's good enough to tell you like how good that feels. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, I never thought life could be like this post-military, honestly.
Yeah. No, and so seeing where you are today, what was it like kind of, and you said this, a lot of the stuff that you started learning prior to the actual transition and the retirement. What was that? What did that look like? Like once you got out and you were back in society as a civilian, and how did what learn help you? And were there still some gaps that you didn't have or that you were missing that you kind of have grown into now?
Hmm. So the things that I knew when I transitioned out was, I knew I needed to have a really strong self-care regimen.
All right.
Um, and that included not only just like actually taking the time to go to the doctors and do all the stuff that you need to do. But it also meant putting back in the time that I needed to kind of make this like a wheel of life. You
Right.
want all of your spokes to be even.
Yep.
And so as I looked at that, my goal with transitioning out, and still it's something that I look at regularly, is okay, well, on that wheel of life, you've got financial things. Okay, so like real life, we got to look at that, because finances, let's all be real, that's a big part of feeling secure and not having to
Yep.
worry about things. So putting the effort towards that. Um, self time, like things for you that you truly are passionate about that aren't work related.
Yeah.
Like, we're humans. We're not supposed to just work and die, and if for somehow in our society that's what we've decided, like that's the only path to life. So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
doing things that bring me joy just for the sake of pure joy, I've put those things back into my life. Like,
Yeah.
I love reading, so I'm going to read books, and I go to ballet class now, and I do, like, those are my things that nobody can touch.
Yeah.
So that's like a non-negotiable thing. Spirituality, it doesn't even matter what, I don't care what religion you are, what you believe in, but just that time to like think about it
Yeah.
and have that time to, develop your spiritual self. Another one of the huge pillars is community. And so when we get out of the military, we lose our community
Yeah.
because it's been given to us, and we don't know how to build community because that just showed up the day that we raised our hand, right?
Yep.
So that honestly was one of my biggest struggles, was that I got out of the military and I had no community. So I
Yeah.
don't have, my family doesn't live close. I don't have huge, strong family ties. We're not a super tight family. So that kind of, wasn't the biggest option for me. Friends, I have very few, but they're very close friends. But just to
Yeah.
have a community of people, I didn't have.
Yeah.
And so actually learning how to make friends, like, it sounds very like kindergarten or second grade, but like,
You're not wrong though.
as an adult, how do you go and make friends
Yeah.
And so that has been like, it's a skill.
It is, absolutely is.
And so learning that, but man, I'm telling you, having a community again that isn't work, that isn't like just a community
Yeah.
is like, ah, it's awesome. It makes you feel whole again. But it's one of those things on the spoke that, when one breaks, you got to have the others that are going to, help keep that tire going forward.
Yeah.
So those are the things that I'm constantly looking at and constantly reevaluating. Working on the things that I have self-identified that was weak for me in the past, and boundaries particularly, and not being a people pleaser, and learning to say no, and holding that line has been pretty life changing as well.
Yeah.
And to know that you can say no, and that doesn't mean that whoever you're saying no to, the relationship's ruined. That just means you have a boundary. You're not going to do
Yep.
it.
Yep.
Like, but a lot of us saw that if we said no to something in the military, that's a career ender.
Yep.
So it's having a different mentality about all of that. And also prioritizing my mental health. Every single thing that I do, every decision I make, everything I take on, I really take a look and see, is this putting me back in a bad place?
Right.
And is it necessary? And more times often it's not. And so you make a different decision and you move on. So
Yeah.
it's post-military, yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
And I think the loss of community, if I had to sum it up in one thing, it probably, first of all, loss of community. The second is loss of identity, because we let everything go when we were in the military to
Yeah.
have the identity of the soldier, the Marine, the airman, whatever person that, whatever branch you served in. And then when you're out of that uniform, we're left with this, we don't know who we are, and we don't have this identity. So creating your identity and finding a community is really, really tough.
No, you're absolutely right. I think those were the two biggest things that I lacked on and didn't know how to create when I transitioned, was identity and community. Um, when I retired out of Camp Lejeune, we stayed in the area, and it's a military town, but I still did not have a community because I isolated, right?
Mhm.
Like I had to cut my time short because of a med board. So it was not of my choosing. And so I felt like I'd left a lot on the table in my career that I didn't get to finish. And I kind of, I wouldn't say, I wouldn't say shameful is how I felt, but disappointed in myself. Right.
Yeah.
And so everybody that I knew and I thought I was close with was still in, they were still doing their thing, and I found out really quickly that once you're out, you're no longer as close to those people as you thought you were. Nobody calls anymore. Nobody even texts you anymore. Like nothing happens. Right. And so that in itself made me isolate and not want to build a community. Right. Because again, like, and and depending on, I don't know how it is in the Army, but in the Marine Corps, we move about every 4 years. It seemed like about every 4 to 5 years, like you were moving duty stations. So you would get somewhere, make a lot of cool friends, do a lot of cool stuff, and then 4 years later, you were leaving. And in between that time, some of them were leaving, right? And you had
Mhm.
to get new people and make new friends and do new cool stuff. And like, so that was a repetitive thing too. So it's like you didn't know how to sustain real friendship, and you would say, "Oh yeah, we'll stay we'll stay in touch," whatever, whatever. 10 years go by, you haven't even talked to them. You know what I mean? So like that was a big piece for me. And so I think it was either last year or year before. Um, so like 2024, or it might have been last year in 2025. Um, so both of my daughters, they do all-star cheerleading. And again, being around where we are, there's a lot of veterans, a lot of still even active duty, like parents that have their kids that do cheerleading. And so this happened to be one of our daughters were on the same team as this other girl. And the wife forced the husband to come talk to me because he was the same way. He didn't talk to anybody either. He's also a Marine, a veteran, same thing. He didn't talk to anybody. He just kind of stayed to himself. And obviously I was that way too. So my wife and his wife kind of forced us to start talking to each other. And we've been best friends pretty much ever since, and that forcing of us to interact with each other is really what I guess really sparked me starting to build my community here locally for me. And then like just doing that in itself has changed so many things and
Hmm.
how I feel. And like I talk to this group almost every single day. Right. There is not a time that we don't talk to each other in some way. Right. Um, and finding my identity, I didn't know who I was because again, like you said, you'd been a Marine or a soldier or a sailor for so long. And I was married and had kids pretty much my entire career. Like we had our oldest daughter when I was 23. My wife was 24. All right. Like I was a Lance Corporal or nope, she got pregnant when I was a Lance Corporal. So I was an E3, came home from Iraq and she had our oldest daughter. I was a corporal then, but still like my entire career, I didn't know much about I didn't have much time as a single Marine,
Hmm.
you know? And so even with knowing I had a wife and kid at home, I still put 110% of myself into my job, right? Because that was the priority. And like
Yeah.
that in itself is, and you don't even realize it either until after the fact. Like after you get out, you don't realize how much that not just affects to your family, but how much it affects you on how you try to do things in the future once you no longer have the uniform off. Because that was, I tried to do the same thing. I burn out really quickly. My first job out of the Marine Corps were remote. I was trying to do my podcast. I was getting my podcast off the ground back then this was 2022 at the time. Kind of the same thing. And 8 months after I retired, I completely hit a brick wall and burnt myself out. Because the same thing, like you said, I didn't set boundaries for myself. I didn't set boundaries for the people around me. I was always saying, "Oh yeah, I would absolutely love to help you," and it would start overlapping, and I couldn't manage the time properly. I didn't have enough of myself to give everybody, and sustain that. And I love how you said that you self-identified things because I think that's one thing that I started to learn how to do. I had to learn it the hard way, but I
Hmm.
started learning I had to identify myself, what was going on, how I was reacting to certain things. Once I could start seeing that myself and not have somebody else tell me and then me take that as them blaming something on me or something like that, like I could see it myself, then I had to actually accept that that was happening. Once that acceptance happened, and then that's when I could start pushing through it and healing from it, and then being able to take that and start building on that and figuring out how, okay, if I start to see these things kind of these phases happening or these systematic steps happening, I know I'm starting to get close to where I don't want to be again. Let me
Hmm.
figure out how we're going to set this back now, right? Like you start seeing those things. I think that's really where the healing starts is being able to self-identify and then accept that and then be able to know how to build onto that.
Yes. And it's great that you have been able to identify that because a lot of us don't.
Yeah.
A lot of us, like, I don't know how many, I'm in veteran groups and stuff like that on Facebook, and you are too,
Yeah.
and a lot of your listeners are. And, I see just these negative comments of, how I can't, just as simple stuff, like I said before, I hate going to the grocery store,
Yeah.
or, this is just how I am now, or like these kind of comments. And it's like,
It doesn't have to be,
it doesn't have to
right?
be. And it does take, like I said before, there's not a magic pill, but it takes
No.
self-awareness, and it takes the desire to not want to live like that.
Yes, it
That
does.
was a big thing with me because I was really, really angry for a while. I was angry at the army. I was angry at myself. I was angry at, just this walking stress ball of like anything that was going to go wrong, I was going to blow up on it. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, something minor happened with my car. Ah, the world's against me. Like, no,
Yep.
it's not. Something happened, fix it and move on. Like,
Yeah.
but we, when we're reacting to like minor things like that all the time, like they're major events, we're never going to heal. And we're never going to be able
No.
to have that regulation that we need in our nervous systems to be able to move forward. And it's a tough battle because,
It is.
when the nervous system should be kind of like a flat line.
Yeah.
And then when something happens, you come up and then you come back down. But
Yeah.
what happens with us is we're stuck. and
Yeah.
we're stuck and we're stuck and we're stuck and our bodies don't know how to come back down.
Yeah.
And you have to, just like the gym, you have to retrain your mind and your nervous system to know what baseline is again.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of effort, but it's worth it.
It is, and that's what I try to tell people too. Is like it. There's not going to be one pill that's going to fix you. There's not going to be one system or one session that's going to fix you. It's those like those sessions and those resources that you go to treatment plans or like programs you get into. Like those are just tools to build a foundation with, right? Like that's all they're there for. They're not to fix you. There is no, in my opinion, it's not, you're not really getting fixed ever. It's a continuous healing journey for the rest of your life. You just learn how to react and control, right? That's really all you're doing. Like the trauma is still there. The things that happened don't go away. They still are there. They still happened. It's just now you can identify those things much earlier before they become a problem, is
Yeah.
how like to see it and say it.
Yeah, and it's yeah, that's totally spot on. And yeah, I've expressed it more as especially with the clients that I work with is, if you're really set on healing and really set on living a life that you deserve, it's a lifestyle change.
Yeah.
You can't keep eating the same junk. You can't keep feeding yourself monsters at a desk job. You can't keep reacting the same way. You can't keep compartmentalizing and not having hard conversations.
Mm.
You have to address all of this stuff um, and change your life for it.
Yeah. I mean, and that also goes to changing the people you surround yourself with,
Yep.
changing the information you intake on a regular basis, right? Like there's a lot of those pieces aside, like around that as well, because we all know we got some of those friends that when we get around, we're definitely not the best side of ourselves when we get around them, right? Like we just have those guys or those people that are like that, it just happens. Um, and then you have the ones that troll people on Facebook or other social media platforms, and they're just doing it to get a rile out of somebody,
Yeah.
It's so it's like it's much bigger than just talking about it or just changing one thing about what you're doing. It's you literally, like you said, it's a complete lifestyle, like restructure for you,
Yeah.
right? That's really what it is.
It is. It's a shakeup, and
Yeah.
and it is. It is cutting out, setting boundaries and cutting out toxic people in your life, and they may be people that are really close to you,
Yeah.
but it's, you know, if they're gonna keep feeding their toxicity into you and disrupting your healing journey, it's self-preservation. And there's ways and there's methods that I teach that, you don't have to kick somebody totally out of your life, but to
Yeah.
hold those boundaries. And
Yeah.
you know you have to be number one at some point.
Yes,
You
absolutely.
gave the military number one. You cannot serve yourself, your family, be the
Yeah.
best version for the rest of your life that you deserve if you're not going to invest the time and effort into yourself. And that's just the bottom line.
No, that's absolutely right. Like there has to come a point in time where you take care of yourself before anything else, because it was easy to take care of everybody else in the mission and not take care of yourself, because guess what? Everybody else around you was also doing the same thing. So the lack of you taking care of yourself, somebody else picked up for you, right?
Mhm.
But now on the outside of that institution, that no longer is the case. Nobody's there to pick up the lack of self preservation for you, right?
Yeah.
Like now it that has to be priority.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, it's interesting because I've talked to quite a few people, and it's almost like literally the same story from so many different people with so many different backgrounds, but the story, like if I was to do an executive summary of everybody's story, they'd be very similar. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
given high level like points for every story, they'd be very similar. And I really wish there was a way for like somebody to be able to see that and say, there is a real problem. We're not doing these people a service by the way that we're transitioning them or providing services or lack of services once they're out, you know? Um, yeah, because I mean, there's too many stories that sound very similar.
They are similar. And I'm a little critical of some of the services. So um I need to like caveat this with, there are really great organizations out there that help veterans and help their transition. But the ones, so they seem to be for the very extremes.
Right.
So the like very injured veterans,
Yes.
very like loss of limbs, loss of, you know, serious TBI, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like they do a good job of taking care of them. I feel like it's the rest of us who are
Yes.
damaged goods, and
Yeah.
we do need help, and we do need assistance. Um, there's nothing really for us
Right.
in that, and so I have two issues with that. One, it's not available. The other thing too is the ones that are available. There's us as veterans, we also need to like take control of our own healing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of services that are out there, and I'll talk about what I offer a little bit later, but a lot of this stuff isn't free. And there's this stigma out there that veterans should get everything for free. And it's like, well, like,
Yeah.
sometimes you gotta own it.
Yeah.
And so while I wish that all of these services could be nonprofit and there was never ending money for funding these sorts of things, the ones that are the extreme where people really need this help, yeah,
Yeah.
that stuff's funded. But the middle of us, what do we do?
Yeah.
Like, and then there's retreats that happen, and retreats are fantastic. I think that's great, but they don't get the root cause. So you can
Right.
go hang out with your buddies and go on a fishing trip and do a weekend long camping trip or a hike or whatever, and you feel great for that weekend, but you haven't fixed the root cause of your nervous system
Right.
and the imbalance that's going on in your body. So it's a temporary fix. You're going to go home and you're going to fall right back into the same traps.
Yeah.
So what we need is the combination of something that is accessible for us. We need to know that it's out there, and it also has to have the education associated with it so that you can make these life changes, so that you're not continuously going back into this cycle that your body wants to keep you in because it's
Right.
comfortable there.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I like how I wish we could like sit here and figure out how to
Yeah.
like put you right into a transition program like that after the military. But the honest truth is you just can't wait to get your DD-214 and get off base and never have to be told to do anything. And then
Yeah.
it's 6 months later when you're like, crap, this isn't good.
Yeah. And I think you bring up a really good point about how there's so many programs out there that only facilitate the extremes, right? So, case in point, I'm not going to name the organization, but I applied to a nonprofit, um, and was trying to get into one of their programs. And because I didn't have a dedicated rating for a specific mental health disorder, and it wasn't at a certain percentage rating, I didn't qualify for any of their programs. Like,
Like, yeah.
yeah,
Wouldn't
right.
it have
Like,
been great if they could have said, hey, you don't qualify for this, but we can help you at this level?
yeah,
Because
right.
my healing journey, I tallied it up, the amount of money that I spent trying to fix myself. It's over $15,000 of my own money
Yeah.
trying to figure out what the heck is wrong with me
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
fixing it. But so wouldn't it have been great to have that organization come back and say, you know what, we can do this program, but here's a tiered level of support, and you may
Right.
have to invest into it. Because I can tell you, I would invest. I mean,
Oh,
I just looked
absolutely.
at how I'm invested into my own
Yeah.
health
No,
for fixing
absolutely.
something I didn't
Or
break.
they should be like, hey, we can't support you with this program, but this organization can with this program. Right? Like, why don't they talk to what? Like, I don't understand. Like, why? Like, that's not like you're all supporting veterans. Why aren't you guys doing things like that, cross marketing like that? In my opinion, right? Um, or like you said, have tiers of support based off of your ratings or whatever your conditions are.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean that happened at a couple of different organizations, and I just stopped looking.
Yeah.
Like it turned me away from even trying to look anymore. Or like, and so I was like, I just hopefully the VA will help me, and it kind of did. It finally did. Took me about a year to start really getting into some treatments that seemed to be doing somewhat okay. But again, that was continuous effort and continuous nagging on that front as well to get
Yeah,
to
but
get it done.
a year, a
Yeah,
year,
yeah,
and you had the persistence to keep going through that.
yeah,
Like, when you're in this state, I, I mean, you shouldn't
yeah.
have to be begging for help for a year.
No, because so like when I first retired, our local VA clinic was completely full. Like, didn't have any more physicians. They didn't have no spots, and so they put me into community care. So I went and saw a civilian doctor. And so, and so I was like, okay, well, I got all these claims, all my military medical records have all of this information. I need to get continuous treatment for all of those things that I had going on and being treated for before I retired. So went into my PCM and says, hey, I need to get a referral to see a neurologist because of my sleep disorder. And they're like, well, yeah, you got to do a sleep study first. I was like, yeah, I did like 3 years ago and got diagnosed with a sleep disorder. Well, yeah, but that doesn't count. Well, how does that not count? I've been being treated for it for like the last 3 years. How does that work? Well, we got to send a referral into the VA. Okay, we'll do that then. So they would send a referral in, and 2 weeks go by. I didn't hear anything, and I would call my doctor, and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, we submitted that like 2 weeks ago." I'm like, okay, so I call the VA, and I'd be like, "Hey, I'm in community care. They submitted us a referral. Oh, we haven't received anything yet. Tell them to send it again." Like that went on for almost a year, and then finally spots opened back up in our VA clinic. So I actually got to go back into the clinic to be seen, but then I had to start that process all over again.
Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous in our care that we get.
Yeah. And just like all of us have the same story of getting out and what we've been through with the military,
Yeah.
we all have the same VA story.
Yep.
It's infuriating.
It is. And the
I have a
ones,
list of things to do, and I still have to call the VA tomorrow
yeah.
because I'm still dealing with stuff that I can't get figured out. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
when does it end?
Yeah. No, I feel like it's the ones that need it the most that don't get it most of the time.
Mm,
Like I've heard, like, there's been a couple of guests of mine and just people in my, like, in my network that have told me, like, there's been times where, like a year or so ago, that they'd go into the VA and be like, hey, I need help today. Like, I need it right now, like mental, like behavioral health assistance, and they were told, we'll come back tomorrow. We can't see you today. Like, come on, guys, really? Like, that's what we're doing. And they
it's
wonder why
wild.
nobody wants to go to the VA.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
exactly. It's crazy. So, because we've identified that there's no help for us in the middle,
yeah,
that was exactly my idea for my post retirement job. I wanted to create something for us,
yeah,
that group, the group that needs help but doesn't need the inpatient psychiatric help and all that.
right,
Like, just trying to, like, how do we get back? How do we get life back? How do we get our lives back? And so as I was going through the years of how do I fix myself? How do I become happy again? How do I find myself? How do I know who
yeah,
I am? I ended up taking myself on this trek to Everest Base Camp
okay,
because I've been like a person obsessed with Mount Everest my whole life. And so I was like, I'm finally going to see this mountain with my own eyes. So I did it. I did the physical training, and that was part of my accomplishment for myself because I had such severe back pain. I didn't think I could carry a backpack again.
yeah,
The mental piece of it of like, cool, I'm just going to go. And also it was kind of a timeline that I set for myself to kind of cross to it's going to sound weird, but like cross to the other side, like
yeah,
get my new, like have the identity of who I am still love the fact that I served in the military and be incredibly proud of it, but I can't live every day as a civilian
Yeah.
thinking that I, have a uniform on or, acting that role anymore.
Yeah.
It's my time's done. It's someone else's turn to do that now. So as I was in the middle of an Everest base camp trek, I was really strict. So no media, no phone, no, and this was 2018. And so there wasn't a lot of communications up
Yeah.
there anyways. It's totally changed now. But so I was real strict on, I'm just being present. And I was alone most of the time. So I didn't really
Okay.
talk to anyone. So I just had a lot of alone time. And I remember hiking through this high alpine field about 15,000 feet. And I felt like this armor that I was carrying for years was just cracking and falling off. And I was like, I finally felt this like liberated feeling of like, this is what peace feels like.
Yeah.
And about, I don't know, probably the next day, I was like, I want others to feel this. And so the second I came back from that trip, I told myself that when I retire, I'm going to start a company and it's going to be to help people through learning how to understand their nervous system, how to be their best selves, how to physically get fit and, rehab from these nagging injuries that we have to be able to go on the adventure of a lifetime and change who you like, become the person that you want to be.
Yeah.
So I was able to do that. I retired fully in 2023 and started Blue Side Adventures then. And it has turned into what you and I just talked about that we wish we had.
Yeah.
It's a year-long process. So it's not easy, but you're guided with it. You have community. We're all in it together. And we're kind of like an annual cohort that goes into it. But your first 12 weeks of working is, I call it the back home journey, because we all have to figure out how to get back home. And it's neuroscience. It's the science behind what's going on in your brain and body. And it's exercises along the way to find yourself and find out why you're reacting certain ways and how to deal with your triggers. And then as we get further in the program, we learn how to deal with others and then how to deal with others that aren't working on themselves so that we don't get sucked back into that place. And so that's the first 12 weeks. And that's really the foundation of setting this new transitional part of your life of, new community, new you, right?
Yeah.
So then after that, then everyone has decided which adventure that they want to go on. And these adventures are anything from the extreme of going back to Everest Base Camp. I'm doing that every year. To we're doing the Italian Dolomites this year. And then we've got some domestic trips because I know not everyone can or wants to travel internationally, but we have weekend trips that are camping and summiting 14ers in Colorado. And, this year we're doing a backpacking trip to the Grand Tetons. So all of them have an element of like, you are really physically working for something.
Yeah.
And then you go on your adventure and then, the rest of the year we still have online programming. So we're doing seminars on the microbiome and how what you eat affects your mind. We're doing an alcohol-free challenge month that probably turns half the people away listening. It's fun to just like, hey, 30 days without alcohol, what happens,
Yeah.
And then other challenges, we talk about sleep, we talk about, and then we just get together and we have these meetings. We meet almost weekly. And as a community, we just get together and chat and talk. And it's the community and what we've been missing. And then we do make friends because we go on adventures together and I have subgroups from this group that they've met and they're such great friends. They go on their own adventures now, which is fantastic.
That's awesome.
So being able to deliver that and being able to do it in a format where it's really not negotiable. It's not a retreat and it's not a travel company. And it's not a travel, friends group. This is a group where we're veterans and first responders that refuse to let our previous wars win.
Yeah.
And that's really what it's all about. And I'm doing it as it's just me running it. It's a lot of work, but I love it. I don't have sponsors. I don't have, all the fancy things that we wish that we could give all this stuff for free, but
Yeah.
the investment in yourself, I'm telling you, is, everyone that's gone through it has said, like, just like what we talked about, like, why isn't why isn't there more of this out there?
Yeah.
But it provides community, it provides a mission, and you start to find out who you really are again. So it's
Yeah.
been it's been really fun to be leading that for a couple years now.
That's awesome. I think there's a piece, at least from my perspective. Would it be nice to be able to give things like this for free? Absolutely would, because you want to make sure it's available to anybody and everybody that needs it, right? But what I will say is, when you invest in yourself, you're more than likely going to be successful at what you invest in, right? Than if it's handed to you. Like, let's look at educational benefits for one, right? You get paid to go to school, you're not paying tuition. If you make a C, nobody cares, right? But if you're paying for it out of pocket for your education, you're going to do everything you can to make sure you're making straight A's the best that you can, right? Like, and so like, it's there's two sides of that coin for me. Do I wish we could give people these things like this for free? Absolutely do. Maybe there's ways we could, I don't know. But at the same time, it's like you said earlier, it's like you have to want to invest in yourself, and to pay for something is the first step of the wanting to, because you're not going to pay for it if you really don't want to.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so again, like I said, there's two sides of that coin for me, but I love what you're doing. Um, I definitely want to, I'm probably going to work with you and see about getting myself enrolled into one of your programs.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been really special, and I the way that things are taking off with it is, and we decide as a community what our next adventures are going to be,
Oh, that's
which is
awesome.
really fun. So, like, all the things that we're doing in 2026 has been what the community told me they wanted to do. I'm not just randomly throwing out
Yeah.
adventures. So, and so, yeah, we're working on 2027 now, and they gave
That's
me some
awesome.
fantastic ideas that we're going ahead with. So we're doing Kilimanjaro next year. We're doing a safari in Africa.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
we're doing the Camino in Portugal. Like, we're just,
That's awesome.
yeah, we got some really great stuff, and I've got some other things that are way in the works that I can't really talk about yet because they're not really set in stone. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's just been amazing to see, like, where this has come and where it's going, and how much it's needed, and the
Yeah.
fact that I keep getting people coming back, and this community keeps growing so much every year, to the point where I'm going to have to start, like, outsourcing and hiring people, which is great news. But
Yeah.
that just tells me that it's needed,
Yeah.
and it's the stuff that, like, yeah, you put together what you didn't have and what you wish you had.
Yeah, no, like I said, well, that's amazing. Like, I really, like you said, I wish there was more programs like that, because a lot of the programs that are out there are like treatments or retreats, like where you just go hang out and you really don't even talk about anything. You just hang out. And if you talk about something, you do. And if you don't, you don't, you know?
Well,
Um,
and it's just rehashing old war stories.
Yeah,
Like,
and that's
that's
really all it is.
fantastic,
It's,
but we're
and,
not
and,
we're
he's,
not fixing
and in the
anything.
groups, like you find the two in the group who are trying to one up each other with their stories, like all of a sudden, like, yeah, no, that's exactly what it turns out to be on a lot of those things. But I love how you have a structured like program to where there's real instruction, there's real growth, and there's actionable things you can take away from the program. Like, that's the part that I think sets this apart from a lot of different other programs, in my opinion, is your guys' approach to it, honestly.
Yeah, thanks for seeing that and recognizing it. And it so it's kind of a mix of, we're military, and it's like we do like to be told what to do. We want to have a mission, and we want it. So
Yep.
it's like, hey, well, this week you have to do these modules,
Yep.
and we're moving. Like, you don't do it, I mean, obviously no one's kicking you out or anything, but,
Yeah.
like, the rest of the team's moving on. So
Yeah.
you can either get with it and get on board with healing and
Yeah.
do it the hard work, because the first 12 weeks, I'm going to tell you, are they're not fun. It's not fun,
Yeah.
like, doing the inner work that it takes. It's exhausting. It's
Yeah.
pulling a lot of deep stuff that we've buried in for years and years and years, and probably even stuff that we're digging into from childhood, because all of us have as great as your childhood was or wasn't, we still, all of us carry something
Yeah,
that didn't quite go right. So yeah, you're digging in. But once you start to recognize it and come out on the other side with it, it's night and day.
that's awesome. So for any of the listeners out there, how can they find more out about this or get in contact with you guys?
Yeah. So my website, even though my name is Blue Side Adventures, my website is bluesideyoga.com.
Okay.
So I started as a yoga company before I did adventures. And I just never switched the domain because it's a lot of I don't, like I said, it's just me.
Yeah, yeah.
If something's working, I'm not messing with it at the moment. I have too many things going on. But yeah, so you can go to my website, Blue Side Adventures, bluesideyoga.com. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram at Blue Side Adventures. And please send me a DM, follow me, send me an email, Sarah at bluesideyoga.com, any of it. I would love to get anyone involved with. We've got a few spots remaining for our Tetons trip. That's the only open trip we have left. So we've sold out everything else, which is pretty exciting.
Awesome.
You can get on a wait list for 2027. And then if you're just looking to do the journey, you can join the online programs at any time. So you can
Awesome.
you can be part of the online community without actually having to go on one of the trips. But I'm telling you, the trips is where it's at. So you
No, that's
definitely
awesome.
put it in your schedule. Definitely hop on one of the trips.
No, that's awesome. I'll make sure and have all the links put in the show notes for everybody, so they can have access to that and be able to find you pretty good. So that's
Yeah,
awesome.
it'd be great.
So we'll do one last hot take. If you were talking to a veteran right now, what would be the one hot take you would want to give them or advice to give them?
Ooh, that's a really good. Just one thing, huh?
It could be a combination of a couple, but what would you want to tell them or say to them?
Find who you are outside of the uniform. What you did is not who you are, and it's honorable, and you should be super proud of what you did. But it's a means to a well-served life and a paycheck, but it's find out who you are, because that is the most exciting adventure out there, I promise.
No, that's awesome because I think you're right. It's what veterans like what we did is what we were, but not who we are, right?
Mhm.
And for us, those I think look very similar in our minds. We think what we are is who we are, and that's just from being in the military. That's what the military does to you, right? Like it's they they indoctrinate you into that kind of mentality. You are this, or this is what you are, so this is who you are. Type of mentality is how they indoctrinate you. Especially the longer you stay in, the more prevalent that becomes in your identity, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think that is some solid advice right there. Is figure out who you actually are, not like yep, you were a Marine, you were a soldier, whatever. That gave you parts of what you are, but that didn't make you who you are, right?
Yeah.
Find out who you are again. Yes, I like that. That's good.
Yeah.
You know, Sarah, it's been a pleasure and an honor having you on the show today, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to allow you to share your story. This has been great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been great to be here, and I really hope that your listeners are able to take away some tips and just some importance on we got to fix what's upstairs. So
No, absolutely. Again, I think you guys are doing amazing things, and I cannot wait to see where 2027 hits, and then past that. I'm excited to follow that adventure with you. I really am, because I know we're going to stay connected for a long time. I think
oh yeah,
so.
definitely.
So I'm excited to see what that becomes. I really do. And then for all the listeners out there, again, thank you guys for listening, taking the time to listen to the whole episode. Again, I'll have all of her links and her website and stuff in the show notes. So if you have any questions, please go there so you can find out how to contact Sarah and get more information. And as always, be the light in someone's dark.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of The Bunkhouse. If this episode speaks to you or made you think of someone who might be struggling, please share this with them. And remember, you don't have to carry this alone. There are people who care, and there's always a next step. If you'd like to stay connected, press follow and leave a review so more veterans and their families can find these stories. You can also connect with me and find other resources by following the links in the show notes. And as always, be the light in someone's dark.